Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach, brought to you by the TeacherCast Educational Network. If you are in charge of professional development and looking to build an innovative digital learning experience, this is the podcast for you. Join us each week as we uncover strategies that tech coaches are using to drive their digital transformations one classroom at a time. And now for your host, with over 2 decades of experience working with tech coaches and ed tech companies from all around the world, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Ask the Tech Coach podcast, episode number 263. And as we are releasing it this week, we are only days away from the ISTE conference. I am looking forward to seeing 20,000 amazing educators, coaches, administrators, some students, but a lot of great things that are going to be happening coming up in the next few weeks over in Denver. If you guys are going to be going to ISTE this year, please look me up. We have a lot of great things happening in Denver. Of course, we're going to be doing some podcasting, checking out some interviews. And on Monday, I have an Ignite session that I'm going to be doing all about coaching and things that you can do to be prepared for a great coach. Check that out at 10 o'clock. And if you guys are going to be heading over to the ISTE Coaches Playground, I'm going to be presenting at, I believe, it's 1 o'clock. I'll double check that now that I'm saying that out loud, but I think it's the 1 o'clock session. The playground session actually runs for 2 hours, but I'm going to be doing an hour-long session on things that you need for coaches. We're going to talk about your organizational structure, your communication structure, your website structure, all of that great stuff that's going to help you stay productive. If you are an instructional coach or digital learning leader, thank you guys for checking out the show today. Don't forget to head on over to teachercast.net/podcast for this and all of our podcasting archives. I am extremely excited that you are here today for a fantastic show. The genesis of this podcast happened years ago when I met an amazing instructional coach, and we recently had a chance to reconnect down in Florida at the FETC concert. I happened to walk into one of her sessions. She was absolutely killing it, and she was showing off the great things that she was doing with her team. I happen to have some members of her team on the show today. I want to bring on today my great friend, Miss Tasia King. Tasia, how are you today? Welcome to TeacherCast.
I'm so excited to finally make this happen, Jeff. I mean, it's been some time that we've discussed this. So I'm really excited to be here with you, kicking off a great conversation today.
I am excited that you are here. I'm so thankful that you have spent time with us today. Anna also brought some friends. You are a instructional coach. You're a trainer. You've been doing this for a long time. You happen to be down in South Carolina. What are you doing these days down there?
Yes, I am getting ready to wrap up the school year. I'm excited about that. Closing out professional learning, reflecting for the year, getting ready for the summer, all of those things. Ready.
You and I have a lot in common. Not only are we trainers and Google people and all that great stuff and instructional coaches, I do believe that since the last time I saw you, a congratulations is in order for joining the Emerging Leaders group.
Yes.
Congratulations. It is so nice to have you in the family.
Thank you. Yeah, I've done some work with the South Carolina SCASCD Emerging Leaders this school year. It's been a great opportunity to connect with other educators across the great state of South Carolina.
If you're looking for more information, these programs, things like Emerging Leaders, Microsoft Innovative Educators, Google Innovators, all of these, I'm serious, guys, best professional development out there. Tasia, what advice do you have for anybody that's looking at the summertime going, if I could choose one thing to do for my professional development, what advice do you have for coaches out there?
Well, I'm going to go with the hot topic at the moment, and I would say take a little dive, dip your toe into AI if you have not already. Starting the year can be a bit hectic for instructional coaches, teachers, everyone in education, and I think that we can start our year a little bit more smoothly if we have the great assistant of artificial intelligence. So I'm going to encourage people to take some time and try it out. Think about some things that are on their plates at the beginning of the year and run it through AI and see what it cranks out.
If you have not given AI a try yet and are interested in learning more, we have probably done about 15 or so podcasts all around AI, from what is it, what applications, using it as a coach, developing AI platforms as a leader, using it in the classroom, you name it. We have put together a comprehensive AI podcasting curriculum. And of course, you can check that out over on teachercast.net/podcast. That's teachercast.net/podcast. Now, Tasia, you brought a friend with you, didn't you?
I surely did. I brought a very good friend that we happen to share workspace together. I am excited to share with the TeacherCast crew my teammate, Brian Hayward. Brian and I have worked together for the past maybe like 3 years now. 4 years. See, okay. See, we've been having such a good time. 4 years now, and it's been such a joy. Brian is a music educator by heart. He still brings the joy of music to the district office where we work. And I'll let him tell a little bit more about himself, but I'm really excited to bring him to the conversation today.
Welcome to the show, Brian. How you doing?
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Tasia, for that introduction. Thank y'all for having me.
It is nice to have a fellow music teacher, fellow technology teacher on board today. That would explain. See, my first question to you is going to be, so you can play the ukulele, but it all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're going for your doctorate right now?
So I am, yes, and it's in educational technology. However, my research interests are in music technology and how students, their attitudes and their perceptions around using technology in the music space, both specifically music technology, but also just technology in the music space, their attitudes and perceptions or lived experience on that. So I'm very interested in what people think in general, why they think what they think, and what those factors are that influence it. So that kind of drives a little bit of the work that I do, even currently in our team with Tasia, as well as some of my side work that I do.
I am so happy that you guys are here. In our last episode, we had another school district, a team of coaches on, and we actually discussed the coaching position from two different points of view. On one hand, we started talking about things that you should be preparing for as a coach as we head into the summer. Things such as, make sure that you're setting up your time with your principal, making sure that you're saying goodbye properly to your teachers, asking them what do you want to do next year? What are you thinking about? That stuff. And then finding, as we mentioned already here, that one thing that you want to focus on. And then also in that episode, we brought out 7 things you don't want to do as an instructional coach. And we talked about, making sure that when you get introduced at the beginning of the year, there is a plan between you and your principal to get introduced. And we mentioned, making sure that when we start to think about presentations, we are keeping in mind that our teachers are not kids. We want to make sure that we're talking at that right level. I am excited about this conversation today, Tasia, because, we're looking at building this professional development capacity. We're looking at making sure that when we're in front of our teachers and our administrative staff, that we're putting our best foot forward. Can you remember the first time that you had an opportunity to stand up in front of your school and big smile and here I am? What was that like to do that first PD session?
Yes. Well, I've had the opportunity to serve as a school-based coach and now a district-based coach. And either way, the beginning of the year brings about a sense of butterflies, but it's invigorating. It's exciting. And I feel the need to spend a good amount of time of, as our team says, rebranding ourselves. One of our teammates talks about the fact that Target and Coca-Cola have commercials that, take over the airwaves. We see them all the time, like it's in your face. So you never forget. It's a constant thing. And so standing in front of teachers, in our case, instructional coaches, every year is an opportunity to start over and add to our toolkit of how the coaching partnership can benefit the coaches, the teachers, and the students in the school community that we support. So it's exciting, but we have to be very intentional about, how we start that year.
We're at that point right now where coaching is either saying goodbye to teachers, helping them get started, or for many coaches, it's a thing of the past. teachers don't want to have a coach in the middle of June or the beginning of June, right? We're in that weird spot. If you were a coach, Brian, you are a coach, but if you were talking to other coaches, what are some of the things that you would remind coaches of as they're starting to wind down their school year? What should they do with their teachers? How do they wrap up their time with the students? What are some of those goodbye things you say to administrators? How should an instructional coach these days wind down their school year?
So I'm a huge proponent of branding, but in a slightly different context than maybe many of my coaches that I work with think about branding. I am all about the verbal and nonverbal pieces of branding. And so what that means is as we engage in conversation with our admin about the upcoming year, or as some coaches are going to be meeting over the summer, they may come in a day or two to work with the leadership team. Some coaches may come in just a couple of days early, as in our district, our school-based coaches will be coming in a few days early. That branding starts from the first time you meet with the instructional leadership team. And one of the things that we talk about, our district has made a shift with our technology coaches to really try to minimize the technology and increase the instructional part of it, so that teachers not only see our folks as the Chromebook man or the Chromebook lady, but they see them as an instructional support. And so I've worked with some of my school-based coaches to talk about the language and the verbiage you use, as well as those nonverbal cues when a person asks you to engage in activities that aren't a part of your primary focus. How do I make sure I highlight my primary focus as an instructional coach, or the type of culture that I'm trying to create around the work I do with my teachers and communicate my purpose to my admin staff? How do I do that in an effective way in the verbal piece? So one of the small little tidbits we talk about is, how do I include my purpose or I don't want to say always the title, because sometimes your title may be slightly deceiving from what your actual job and position are. And so how do I include my purpose in every conversation? How do I talk about supporting my teachers in every conversation I have with them, as well as being an instructional support with my admin? Even though I have the technology piece attached to my title, how do I make sure that they understand that I'm here to support them, and what specific or actionable steps that looks like to help support those teachers? And that includes talking with teachers and saying, correct, as an instructional coach, we work across the district, TLCs or TISs work across the district to help support you in getting started and help fleshing out your ideas. So giving specific examples of the work you can do, I think, is a huge part of that. And that's important for a coach to think about as they step into that building come fall, is how will I from day one, point one, represent the purpose and branding that I want folks to see me as and the culture I want to set.
And you both have mentioned this term branding, a topic that we talk about a lot. Even on the website, we have an entire category of podcasts all about creating a brand and creating, who am I, what do I do? Check that out if you haven't checked it out over, again, teachercast.net/podcast, everything is over there. But are you suggesting, Brian, that this branding is something that never ends? Even now in June, are you still suggesting that we have those conversations with teachers? Hey, I know it's June, you're putting those books back on the shelf, but don't forget that I'm here? Or is this the time where we're starting just to, let's forget the job? Hey, what are you doing with the kids over the vacation? Where do you fall on those end of year conversations?
So that's a great point, Jeff, because I'll actually use an example that you and I will understand as music teachers. One of the things as a middle school educator, as a music teacher, I had a program from 6 to 8. But what I realized after about the third or the fourth year was that if I didn't do something to infiltrate those students, to prep them or set them up to walk into my program as a sixth grader in a successful manner, I was going to lose them. I was going to lose them to other activities. I was going to lose them to other sports. I was going to lose them to other things that are just as important as they adjust to middle school. And so I began working with my elementary music teachers in order to attend their elementary performances. I absolutely started volunteering and teaching at camps and community programs in order to invest in those kids, so that by the time they came to middle school, they were excited to join my program. And I think that that's important for I think that's so important for a coach as they walk into the year, as they work through the year, to always be prepping the ground for what's to come next, to be prepping the ground for, I mentioned earlier, that culture that they want to set. And so if you have challenges that you dealt with this past year, I may not exactly mitigate all those challenges or overcome all those challenges, but can I lay groundwork? Can I lay long-term groundwork in order to set up what I want to do?
And I'm going to say, my team laughs because I'm the one that is very, I'm going to talk to the wall almost. I'll talk to anybody. And so to your question, to add to what Brian said, very good point shared there. But I do ask, okay, what are you doing this summer? What are you doing with the kids? Because I do think relationships are really important. We have, as I'm sure everyone else does, a high number of new teachers every year. Next year may even be even higher. And so I just, try to stress to my coaches the importance of everything Brian said. In addition to that, just building the relationships or maintaining those relationships, just stopping in with teachers and saying, how did it go? How was your year? What are you doing this summer to kind of disconnect? Because I'm going to encourage that, because honestly, I'm going to try to disconnect. No, we work all summer, but I am going to try to disconnect just a tad and tap into that, as we all know, self-care as best as I can. So I do think that is important. To have those conversations. Again, as we work with coaches, we have those end of the year conversations, celebrating goals, talking about challenges and how to overcome those things that maybe still may be pain points for the upcoming year. But I'm also like, are you going to that concert? Are you going to the beach? I just think that's important for them to also see us as well-rounded individuals too, because we are in that supportive role for them.
When it comes to music teachers, and I write about this in the book that's coming out soon. I can officially say that now, guys. There is a philosophy for music teachers. And Brian, you can tell me if this one makes sense. As an elementary teacher, band, orchestra, you have one job. And that job is to bring in and recruit as many as possible. And you just got to get an instrument underneath of them and you push them out, right? You teach them a little bit of notes, you teach them a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of counting, and push them to middle school. That's your only job. 100 people in, 75 if not 90 people out, right? A middle school teacher has an important job. They take in what that elementary kid, what that elementary teacher is doing, the 75 to 90 kids, and they have to orchestrate. They have to make 30 trumpets turn into French horns and oboes and double reeds and English horn. Like, they have to make an entire orchestra and then send those 75 up to high school, hopefully, 60, 65 kids. I looked at my coaching the same exact way. The first semester, I'm an elementary coach. I got to get as many people as I can under my wing, get them to try me out, get them to invite me in, get them to bring me to meetings, get me to have that stuff. And hopefully those numbers grow. Hey, Brian, I'm in the band. You want to join me too? Right? Or then I'll go and say, hey, Tasia, Brian and I are having a great time. Can I come into your classroom and do that same thing? By the time we get to January, February, post Super Bowl, now you're sitting here going, all right, Brian, you and I had a great time. Would you like to try a video thing? Would you like to try an AI thing? Would you like to try you're orchestrating your coaching, basing it off of all the different skills. And now, as we're sitting here in June, I often looked at that and say, I know who's coming back. Maybe not 100%, but you can go to the principal and say who's getting, who's coming, who's not going. I always try to make sure I know the curriculum, so that way when a new person walks in, I can get them in September. Hey, Brian, it's great to meet you. Your first month is going to be doing westward expansion. I got something for you. I know you're busy. I got something for you. I'm here for you, man. And so I looked at coaching in that music perspective. And yep, I'll say it again, talk a lot about music and coaching together in the book, and making sure that when we put all this stuff together, there is a game plan. You can see that a coaching cycle could have 365 days to it. And you could actually do a coaching cycle with an entire building to get your group of coaches to go from September through June, through September through June. Brian, you're a music teacher. How is that? What is that? Does that make any sense to you?
So it absolutely does, Jeff. One of the things you made me think about, our supervisor one of the things that he talks about as we work with coaches and as we coach our coaches to work with teachers is this change formula. And I don't know if you've heard of the change formula from it's the Beckhard-Harris change equation or formula for change. And what it talks about is that when you're working with a coachee, a potential coachee, their dissatisfaction level times the vision that they really want to see happen, times those successful first steps must be greater than the resistance to change. And so what he talks about is what you've identified, Jeff, is those successful first steps, just getting someone in there to just consider how you can solve a short problem or to just play in the sandbox with you slightly. And how that must be greater than a resistance to change. And let's be honest, in this day and age, as Tasia mentioned earlier, we have quite a bit of resistance to change because of whatever inequitable perceptions teachers have, true and valid in most cases, but also the change of needs that need to be met by current day teachers compared to what it was 5, 10, 15, or 20 years ago. And we've got an outdated model of education in general that doesn't meet those needs for a professional teacher. We've also got more options now that teachers have. And so when they have an option that they can zone in, that they can, zone out, and just kind of go through because their ideas have been either beaten down. Got veteran teachers who are excited about teaching, but you've got quite a number of veteran teachers who are like, listen, I just got to hang in there a few more years before I can retire, but I've just got to do. Igniting those folks to coaching is one of the greatest impacts you can have because they already have the experience, they already have the knowledge, they already have so much that they can bring to a space if you can ignite or reignite their passion for instructional practice and instructional change, and again, reminding them about the purpose that they have. So I think you can do that through that change formula, and I think what you said, Jeff, is right on par.
And so, I'm going to say that, I'm sorry, and to add to that, I think one of the biggest successes I had this year was with a veteran or seasoned coach. I don't know what she would like me to call her, but she has been there for a while. And I joke about that because a lot of times she doesn't want to be recognized as that. But I am excited and proud of the work that she has done this year because she was so dissatisfied with, I guess, how things have been for years. And then the shift in the past couple of years, coming back off of COVID and the high turnover of teachers and all of the new things. And she was just like, oh, I just need to make a shift. And so, we had to find what motivated her. But this time of year has been so rewarding, not just for her, but for me too, to see the work that she's done that's come out of that dissatisfaction. And now the experiences that she's had that shows her that she can start the year off strong and she can do some things a little bit differently last year than maybe that she's done in the previous years. So I've been really excited to be that coach of the coach, to motivate her and ignite that passion in her. But it had to start with her being dissatisfied first, as Brian mentioned. So
what are your tips on that? I mean, here we are at the end of the year. It has not been an easy year. It has, again, not been an easy year. There are teachers that are sitting here looking at the clock. There's coaches right now that are sitting here at the end going, I don't know if I'm going to find another coaching position because there's a lot of coaches out there that have been downsized or downshifted. How are you finding ways to motivate your coaches each and every day when the world isn't roses right now for so many people?
I'm going to say small wins, small, tiny bits of success seem to motivate the people that we've been working with. I think that, first of all, we got to know who our people are. We each have about 7 or 8 coaches collectively that we support. And they're also very different. So we've taken the time to get to know them, what excites them, what motivates them, what inspires them. And then we kind of tap into those things. For someone who it's really not even about years of experience. Some people, it takes a lot for them to be motivated. It's got to be an entire coaching cycle, like a 6-week official thing for them to be like, I got it. For someone else, it may take just a successful interaction with a teacher that we've been working on. I've been coaching the coach to be able to have a conversation with the teacher. And for that, out of that, birth, more confidence than they've experienced in years. And so I think it's just knowing your coaches or knowing your teachers, and knowing what motivates them, inspires them, and tapping into that. But also just being comfortable knowing that as a coach, you got to be flexible and realize that one size doesn't fit all.
Jeff, can I just tap in on the end of this to say one of the things, and we haven't mentioned this yet, but Tasia and I have been working a couple of years on this idea of navigating biases, beliefs, and behaviors. And this comes out of some of what we have figured out with our coaches, as well as what we've seen with teachers, even in our work in the classroom, what we have noticed with the students that we've worked with. I was in the classroom for about 14 years before I came out of the classroom working with students. And so we have, over the last probably 3 or almost the entire 4 years that we worked together, we've been doing sort of this side research to kind of look at this process of bias and how it fits in with both our coaches. I think Elena Aguilar kind of describes this as the way you show up in a space is what she describes this as. And even Joellen Killian talks about this space here too, in working with these biases and beliefs. What is behind the behaviors? Sometimes when we look at the behaviors, I think, Tasia, you just did a video sort of article for ASCD, and I did an article that was published in the Equity, and I can't remember the exact magazine name. It's a long name, but I did this, and we talked about this idea.
Great article, by the way. Okay.
We talked about this idea of how those biases or shortcuts, mental shortcuts, feed into belief systems and how those belief systems impact behaviors. And so this is important for us to understand as we are working with coaches, as well as coaches are working with teachers, and then as teachers are working with students. If you are seeing the behavior and it is a behavior that you would like to help affect change on, you've got to look at those beliefs. You've got to look at how they're developed through those mental shortcuts. And you've got to make sure that some of your work doesn't just treat the symptoms, but it treats where the real challenges may be at. And those are the reflexive practice of a teacher or the reflexive practice of a coach, getting them to kind of see themselves through different lenses, through different minds. Tasia does this 5 lenses activity with our coaches where she just has them to talk through how they see themselves in the world as a mother, as sometimes by their gender, sometimes by their race, sometimes by their affiliations or associations, things of that nature. So I think that's absolutely key and important also in the work that we do with coaches.
If you're looking for more information on this and any other coaching topic, please feel free to reach out over at teachercast.net. You can head on over to teachercast.net/contact. And I would love to have you not only feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have about your upcoming instructional coaching gig, but also if you'd like to be a guest on this show, we would certainly love to have you. Now, Brian, Tasia, I mentioned at the top of the show that you and I got reconnected at FETC, a large conference where coaches get a chance to work with other coaches. And here we are, just a few weeks shy of the ISTE conference, another great opportunity where coaches are getting up and teaching and training and interacting with other coaches. I want to discuss this a little bit because, again, in last week's episode, we mentioned when you're doing a presentation to your teachers, don't treat them like children, treat them like adults. And even in that show, I said, yeah, but what about, can we play with Lego and do icebreakers and stuff? They said, no, Lego is okay. What advice do you guys have for all the coaches that are out there? Maybe they're going to be first-time ISTE presenters. Maybe they're going to be 30th time ISTE presenters. What advice do you guys have when coaches are training other coaches?
I would say to take the time to allow people to tap into their own experiences. Sometimes when we're sharing and doing professional learning with coaches, which is primarily, what our role is, we may speak or lead from a position of our own experiences, but allowing space and time for participants or other coaches or learners to reflect and make their own connections to their own, world, their own learning. I think that is so incredibly important. It speaks to the thought of just autonomy and agency in learning. And I think that's very important when we're providing professional learning for adults.
So, and I think I would tag in off of that. One of the things that I always work with my coaches, and when I say I work with them, I don't always deliberately, I have a tendency not to deliberately or overtly say this, but I tend to try to walk them through this pathway. again, in reflective practice. I'm trying to build within them the ability for metacognition. I want a coach to really think about the way that they think and they learn and that they exist in a space. And a lot of times I'll do that by having them to analyze or to look at what's going on with another teacher. So if a person is about to present for other coaches, really think about the journey that you're about to take those on in the room. Oftentimes, looking through windows into other spaces is a great way to start this idea of reflective practice into their own thinking, into their own ideology, and examining their own selves. We call this, one of the things Tasia and I, as we were working through some of our research, we call this introspection in working out. And that is doing exercises to examine the way that you think, examine your own biases, beliefs, the way you show up in a space, and the way that you behave. Not only the way that you mean to behave, but the way that actually others see you behave. What does the data say about that? But one of the things that I really do encourage a trainer to do as their training coaches is to inspire curiosity. If you can inspire curiosity, that the work that we do, if we stay curious about those that we work with, if you can inspire coaches to not just go in with the data that they already, the anecdotal data of observation, where you've gone into a teacher space and you observed, and this teacher's been doing this wrong for however long, and you've mentioned it 3 times, and admins come in, and we all know, if you are a seasoned coach, you know you've got those teachers who are resistant. But one of the things that I think Elena Aguilar also talks in, and I think Jim Knight talks to this idea of the illusion of resistance. And oftentimes we find that when we work with teachers, if we are able to see behind the behaviors, if we're able to connect with a teacher, Tasia mentioned that earlier, if we're able to inspire curiosity within our teachers, and for us training coaches, if we're able to inspire that curiosity in our coaches, we can now get on level ground in order to inspire them in the work that they do.
Brian, do you have any favorite icebreakers? One of the things that I've talked to a lot of coaches about is, once you get going, it's fun, but those first 5 minutes when you're looking your peers in the eye, that's sometimes the most scariest sessions and opportunities. What's your favorite intro, or what's your favorite way to start a session?
Okay, so I'll be honest. One of the ways that I enjoy starting a session is shock and awe. Because shock and awe throws off, it throws people off in a way where they, as a coach, when you go into a room with other coaches and somebody who's speaking to you is a coach, you're like, okay, I know this, I'm probably going to know this, probably going to know this. But if I can pique your attention through that sort of shock and awe avenue, and I believe we've done this at a previous ISTE session with you, Jeff, when we talked about, I think I was speaking on multipliers when you came to see one of our sessions. And one of the things that I actually had you all to do, we were talking about how to multiply, or how to amplify those who you work with, how to amplify their intelligence. And what I did was I had the folks in the room to take this accidental diminisher quiz. And what it does is, I don't know if you remember this, Jeff, from when we were in the space, but there were some folks who were like, okay, wow, this matches me in so many ways. But then there were some who were like, I'm angry at these results. Like, I don't know. I don't like these results in there. And it brought in that sort of either dissatisfaction, or it brought in sometimes just an awareness of sometimes you're getting angry because it's hitting true. And so that shock and awe is one of those ways to just help bring them to the surface that, hey, whether you agree with what those results were, whether you disagree with one of those results, a quiz with a third party independent sort of agency that will cause that sort of shock and awe can help set the ground for you to kind of plow it and help kind of drop some nuggets of knowledge. Another one we do is just, again, in reflective practice, Tasia and I do this activity where we try to lead them, maybe misdirection is a good word to say, where we kind of lead them through these scenarios. And it's just to get them to think through this idea that we all have bias. But we don't tell them that at the beginning. So we'll give them this scenario, and we'll let them walk through the scenario, and we'll ask them a question to solve the problem that we present in the scenario. And then, of course, everybody will raise their hand after a few minutes of thinking, and they'll give what probably is the most common scenario answer that you probably would hear. Some people have twists on it. And then we throw in one detail in our response that lets them know, oh, you're right. You're exactly right. All these details do fit this other answer. And we talked about how those biases automatically, those mental shortcuts, lead us to a certain direction. So those types of activities that allow them to get off kilter slightly in a way that they can't be mad at you, but then, even if they're irritated or mad at the third party sort of activity, like a quiz or like an activity in and of itself, because it uncovers some things, those are great ways to plow the ground so that they're open and receptive to what it is you're trying to share with them.
And
I love.
I'm sorry. I'll say that we like a good icebreaker with our coaches that we coach, but we've come to find that they appreciate when the icebreaker connects to the learning. So, like Brian said, it primes the ground for the learning that's getting ready to take place. So, it allows them to tap into their prior knowledge and help them, make some connections to maybe what is getting ready to occur in that learning space, as opposed to, and there's nothing wrong with. We joke, take out your phone, find the eighth picture, make sure, what is it, blue, share it with someone. And those are fun and they're great. But we have found greater success when it truly does connect to the learning and builds the bridge as to, from prior knowledge to new learning for our coaches.
A lot of coaches these days are trying to figure out what the difference is between what we call weekday PD, weekend PD, and then the biggie, ISTE Conference PD. Tasia, you've got a session coming up at ISTE. Talk to us a little bit about what we can find from what you're going to be doing in Denver this year, and how have you been preparing for it?
Oh, it's going to be good, Jeff. It's going to be good. I'm really excited to share about this. So I will be sharing on Wednesday, the 26th at 1 o'clock from 1 to 2 on a panel with CDW. Thank you, CDW. We're going to be talking about breaking barriers with equity and access in educational technology. And so as a panel, it's a panel style. So we'll have questions, we'll answer questions, probably some audience questions as well, about what it looks like to have equitable resources and practices when it comes to educational technology. We've seen a big shift in that, again, since COVID. A lot of things were revealed, our eyes were opened in many ways. And so we're going to be talking about how to continue this work in equity and access for all students in the EdTech space. So I would love to see new faces and make new friends at that session. For anyone that's coming to ISTE, come up and say hi. I'd love to chat.
I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And of course, if you guys are out there, we're going to make sure that we're going to have all of this great information over on teachercast.net. Currently, I'm working on launching our guide to ISTE 2024. Can't wait to see it. Guys, I want to say thank you so much. This is certainly not the last time I'm going to have you guys on. Hopefully in our next round, we can have everybody on your team on and just have a great conversation. But that is not enough. We would love to have you. Yes, you out there who might be listening to this, driving, listening to it in the car. We would love to have you guys as a guest. Head on over to teachercast.net/contact. Let us know that you guys are out there. We would love to keep in touch with you guys, and let us know what you would like to have seen and heard on the TeacherCast Educational Network. We're going to be doing a lot of great stuff this summer, have a lot of shows lined up. We're going to be bringing back our video tutorials, maybe do a webinar or two live, and certainly going to be preparing to have a fantastic start of the summertime. So if you'd like to be a guest on the show and share off what you guys are doing in your coaching program, please let me know. Brian and Tasia, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It has been great getting to know you guys better, getting a chance to catch up. Brian, where do we find out more about the great things that you're doing?
So you can always contact me, and I'll give you my email, which has my district in there, but you're welcome to reach out to me anytime at bhayward, that's BHEYWARD, at richland2.org. You're always welcome to email me, reach out to me a little bit about some of what I'm working, because I operate in some different fields in some areas, but our team also hosts a blog that we've kind of taken a pause from for a little while, but we're going to get back in there, putting some of our work and our research on there, but it is beyondintegration.org. And so you're welcome to connect with Tasia, myself, and the rest of the team. We've got resources for teachers. We've got resources because part of our work builds capacity. So we've got research to help build capacity in our teachers. And even you'll see the Influential Parent podcast, where we're trying to also, in building that sort of culture, reach out and connect with parents of digital native students. So
It is a fantastic website. Honestly, guys, I would love to do an entire show just on that. We like to talk a lot about coaching websites and stuff on the show, and this is a fantastic example. We're going to make sure that we have a link to beyondintegration.org on our show notes. Again, this is episode number 263. Tasia, in addition to ISTE, where can we find you?
All right. I am pretty active in looking for friends on X. You can follow me at Mrs. Tech King, all one word, all together. I'm also on LinkedIn at Tasia King. So I'd love to connect there as well. Email taking a walk at richland2.org. And I'll make sure that we have that in the show notes for you. I would love to connect, and Brian and I both, to extend the conversation. If there was anything that we've said that you're like, I want to know more about that, we'd love to chat further.
On January 1st, we took a moment to take a big deep breath, and we relaunched a brand new version of TeacherCast. Over the last few months, you guys have seen me redo the website, put it back together, launch not just one, but 3 different podcasts. Thank you guys for taking the time to check it out, to subscribe, to share it, and of course, follow us on all of our social media channels. Guys, we're almost at our birthday here. We're almost at 13 years for TeacherCast. I always want to take a moment to stop and pause and say thank you guys for joining me on on this journey here. There's a lot of great things happening. The day that we are recording this, I am excited to say that I just got accepted as an ISTE certified educator. And for everybody out there who's had a chance to hear me rumble and moan about the process, thank you guys for all of that. Things you're going to have to look forward to up on the TeacherCast Educational Network. Of course, the book is going to be coming out. I got a lot more information about that. We'll talk about that process over the summertime. Got a lot of stuff again with the show. And again, I want to say thank you guys. So that wraps up this episode of Ask the Tech Coach. On behalf of Brian and Tasia and everybody here on TeacherCast, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to Ask the Tech Coach, hosted by Jeff Bradbury of the TeacherCast Educational Network. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach or online at www.askthetechcoach.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.